We are the Lorcana Twins, and we had a fun release weekend for Disney Lorcana, Archazia's Island, and we're going to talk about that today.
We sure did, and like we mentioned in our last video, our local store was doing a draft on release night, which is always a lot of fun, our first chance to try the new cards, and so we sat down to do that, and for that we got 4 packs each, and then you had to pass one card at a time. And my first pack had a foil legendary Minnie Mouse, and as you can see in this image here, I didn't end up including her in the deck, but it was a great start to the opening. And
I also got a Minnie Mouse, but she wasn't foil, so. And I also didn't play her for some reason. I think she just didn't have enough synergy with the other things that were going on with my list. But
the list here, this is what I ended up playing, and as you can see, I had a really lucky second pack. I opened it up and I thought I saw an Enchanted in there, and it was probably one of my top 2 favorites of the set, Aurora, so I was really happy to see that, and I had to grab that right away and then put it in the deck because it was definitely one of the best 40 cards I opened, I will say. Got a lot of items that just wouldn't have done much for me, but yeah, so I'll just quick talk about the cards I included, and I think some of the really heavy hitters were like that 1-drop Toby, just with the 3 strength right away was really good. Mulan can kind of cycle your hand, so that was nice. And then Raja, there's not too many like actions to target things in this set, so knowing that, I mean, he's a 3/3 for only a cost of 2, so that's really good. And Baymax has decent stats. Yeah, and then I think the evasive Perla was nice with support, and Li Shang, who can challenge ready characters, was pretty good. I did use Aurora a little bit. I think her 4 willpower was pretty nice, to at least let her live a turn and get a quest in. And I actually included the Amber Coil I got just to see if I could ever get any synergy with her, and it only happened once, in 3 rounds, but thought it'd be fun just to try. And then the other heavy hitters I think I really liked, the Pascal, like a 3 lore evasive quest, are just really strong in this format, and I only found him in one of the rounds, but when I did, it was nice. And then Lady, I think, was another all-star, just on 5, being able to return a 1 or 2 drop, a couple of those to your hand from the discard pile. So that was, just like a draw 2, plus you're sticking a 2 lore quester on the board.
yeah, I think in Draft and Sealed, you usually run out of cards at a certain point, or kind of get really low on the hand, so she definitely helps with that problem.
And then I really liked Sven for his, enter the battlefield type of reducing someone's strength and then being able to challenge right away. Set up some good trades. And then Cheshire Cat as well for like some ping damage when he enters play. And then I had 3 TikTok, and that was just really big stats, so that really helped control the board. And then Miss Bianca was kind of an all-star too, because there were a lot of allies in this set, and so it was easy to get to play her for a cost of 4 instead of 6, so to have a 5/5 out on turn 4 is really good. And then just the threat about the Baymax shift, being able to play him on any character. There were a lot of times I didn't actually want to play him, or I ended up playing him for the full cost of 6 after I'd kind of exhausted the rest of my hand, but I was able to shift him up a couple times when it looked better and seemed nice. And then I think the last card in this deck that was really strong was the Training Staff, because that allows your characters to have Challenger 2 for a turn, and it's a pretty low ink cost investment once that's on the board, and not too much item removal in this set, so it was pretty safe to just have it out there and make all your characters trade up. So
how did this list do for you?
I was able to win the first 2 rounds, and then I met you in round 3, so we'll share how that went a little later after we've looked at your list.
I was pretty jealous of your Aurora. I did not pull anything anywhere near that caliber of a hit, as you could say, but I did like my list that I played that Friday for release. I had 3 of the 1-drops, the 1 for 1/3s, and those seemed pretty sticky, I guess, for a couple turns. You could usually get a couple lore out of them pretty consistently. And then I like the Baymax, especially if you're going first. I thought it was easy to get a couple lore out of him. Then I like a lot of support cards is kind of what I was going for. So the Robin Hood being a nice 3/3 with support, and I did pull that Thunderbolt, the puppy shift card, and so I tried to look for some puppies throughout the rest of the draft. And so I got 2 of the Freckles that cost 2. So on 3, if you had that out, I could put the Thunderbolt on top. I never actually got that shift line on curve to happen, so the best I was able to do was shift it on top of Pepper, and that felt a little bad actually, because it felt like almost you're wasting Pepper's effect of adding him to your Inkwell when he would get banished. So, but it was nice to have a big 3/7 body, the potential of shifting that. I did also get a Bianca, which I agree seemed pretty nice, but only if you can get like an ally on turn 3. Otherwise, for 6, she feels kind of slow. But I did try to combo her with 2 of the Orville, because then if she's in play the turn after Orville, then he becomes evasive and can either take out some of your opponent's evasive threats or just quest for 1 and stay pretty safe like that. So I went with a couple of Anna. She seemed really good for trying to win a race in the late game or mid to late game, because if your opponent had some exerted characters, she just comes in and keeps them exerted for a turn. So that can help protect yours against being traded out, or just keep them exerted so you can quest without fear of being challenged for at least 1 turn. And then Panic, I thought he was really nice. Damage movement,
like a cheaper Bell from previous sets.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, maybe the characters in play can't quite finish something on their own, but if you just punch in and then heal your character and like finish off the character that you were challenging with the Panic, that can really kind of flip the board state around. So love that. And then I think Fidget was a really really strong character, just being able to give another one of your characters evasive every time he quests. So if your opponent doesn't have any ways to deal with evasives, that was just a really consistent way to quickly get a bunch of lore. And then I also like the Cheshire Cat. I played 1 copy of Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Just had to give those twins a chance, and they felt really slow to me, so I never really got much use out of them. But it was fun just to have it in the deck. And then I did like that Hades, the 6 cost one. A lot of times, there's maybe some 3 cost or less units that might be giving you a problem. I know in one of my games against my brother, he had the Perla out, and she was just threatening to give that support to all of the other characters and make efficient trades on
and you had Fidget out, and I was using her to check the Fidget, so you couldn't.
Yeah, I couldn't really use my Fidget, so I was waiting to get to turn 6, and then I was able to use Hades' effect to banish her, and then I could start using my Fidget, and that was kind of
that ran away with that game.
Pretty helpful. Madam Mim, I like her effect of when she quests, you can exert one of your opponent's characters. So if your opponent is trying to hold their board back a bit, she lets you kind of get at that. And then the Tramp, that's kind of a fun effect, being able to draw a card for each character you have in play and then discard that many. But I found, like, usually by the time I was playing that, I didn't have much of a hand, so I didn't really get to keep much of what I was drawing. And then Wendy, if I could get up to 7 ink, she's a nice 5/7 with evasive.
Did you ever play Wendy?
I did play her in 1 game, but I lost that game. So that game was a match I won 2-1, but it was a very slow start, and I was trying to use Wendy to come back into it at the end, but I was just a little bit too behind on tempo.
So overall, you started 2-0 as well, and then we met in the 3rd and final round, and we ended up. I won game 1. And I think I had out the Bianca and a few too many TikToks, like some really big bodies, and I was able to get some value trades and then just quest out over time. And then game 2, like once you removed my Perla with the Hades, your Fidget just went unchecked and you were able to win that one. And then we ran out of time to finish round 3, and our friends were going out to eat. So we
decided to just kind of draw the last round, the 3rd game of it, so we could go join them for supper. And that was a fun time too. It's always nice to hang out with your friends. And
yep. And so that was the draft. It was a lot of fun. And after that, we went back to the store to play some single player the next day. And
we did.
This is what you decided to try first.
So I kind of wanted to try an archetype that maybe got stronger this set compared to what it had been before, and I'd never really done Ruby Steel prior to this, and it seems like it's probably at its best that it's ever been. I know Elvin Hernandez, or Lore Gains, has been trying a lot of Ruby Steel. I've seen some of his streams, and so the day that I was going to go to play, I didn't really have time to come up with my own, so I thought, well, I know he's been testing it a lot, I'll see what he's been working with. And so this was his deck list that I could find that day, and yeah, it has a lot of cool characters in it that I hadn't got to try as much in the past, like the Radigan from set 2. I like how when you play him, you can exert something with 3 strength or less.
Sometimes people just want to hold their characters back when they see you could challenge them, and it's kind of a way to force the issue.
Yeah, he lets you exert them and then ready one of your own things, so you can actually quest with something first, then ready it, and then use it to challenge if you want. It's very flexible. But yeah, I like the Mulan in the 1-cost cards just to help cycle through your deck. Then also Calhoun, very good for challenging already, but if you combo her with like a Mushu, you can actually get 4 lore when she banishes something instead of 2. Sisu up for turn 3, just a very nice strong body, and I like how, you're not even trying to do Flynn here. It's just something you can play if you want to have good stats on board, and if your opponent can't deal with it, you can just kind of quest it in their face, and get 2 lore every turn until they come up with something. The Benja, I figured that was probably due to how popular Sapphire Steel has been lately, and my first match of the day actually was against Sapphire Steel, so it had the potential to come in handy there. Pete, of course, just a great card. Anti-actions. The Prince Eric, that's a really cool card from set 3.
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes you don't have the exact removal you need for something, but if you have him out on the board, it's nice that either you can trade him in to something and then pick off a character that you really need to get rid of. So he's fun, and he can also sing "And Then Along Came Zeus" or the other song that's in the deck, "One Last Hope." So yeah, there was one time I was able to use him to sing Zeus and remove a Tamatoa, and that felt pretty nice. And then later on, I could just use him to quest aggressively. Ra is really nice in challenging decks as well, because if you ink, you can ready a character. So, that lets you challenge a couple times with something, or even just ready it again and then maybe sing a whole new world. And then the Queen of Hearts, kind of a surprise way to draw cards if you're going to do challenges that turn. Robin Hood, of course, good to get lore with when challenging and can shift to do an early whole new world. And the Maui Shark, we saw how popular that was last set. And I think he's really strong in this deck. Just the combo of him with the One Last Hope, letting him challenge ready characters. And then, of course, whenever you can get that back out of your discard, you can do that on future turns as well. And comboing that with Fan the Flames, to keep readying him and removing your opponent's board. So that's really nice. And if you have Mushu down, at the same time, you're getting lore every time you can get some banishes off, and whenever you're playing the actions, you're also getting lore for that. And then the other kind of card draw in the deck was the medallion weights, so haven't seen a lot of that used before, but it is really nice being able to give a character +2 strength for the turn, and then every time they challenge, you draw a card. So if you can challenge multiple times in the same turn, then you can draw multiple cards, and then
and these characters are really well statted already, so with
yeah,
that strength buff, they can probably clear almost anything.
It was a fun deck. Round 1, I was against Sapphire Steel, and I ended up going 2-1 against that. It was a very fun kind of matchup to see how it played out. The game I lost was due to an aerial dime combination that I just couldn't quite remove the aerial. I actually had the One Last Hope in hand, but because there was a Cogsworth down, my 3 strength unit, or my 4 strength unit that I had was only going to hit aerial for 3, so I couldn't remove her. But games 1 and 3 went a lot better for me, so I did take a 2-1 win there. And then match 2, I was against an interesting Ruby Amethyst challenge deck that had a lot of items and effects that were getting lore and doing card draw off of challenging. That one I was able to do 2-0. I feel like I just had really good draws for that. And then for the third round, I was against my brother, and we can talk about that after he's shown the deck he played.
Sure thing. So I started with the Chernobog and Lady and the Tramp deck, which is quite popular right now at the start of this set. It was one that looked really exciting to me. I don't usually play a ton of aggressive decks, and this one looks very aggressive, but there are other versions of this I've seen that are probably a little bit faster, but I think this one had a lot of nice looking pieces that you could stumble upon to help you out in different scenarios. And this was created by Frank Karsten over at tcgplayer.com. He had an article with this list, so I thought I'd give it a try. I know he's made some really successful lists in the past. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of 1-drops, so didn't worry about not having an early play. Some go-go in there to maybe help you finish or close the game. I really love Morph in almost any deck that wants to shift, and it seems particularly good in this one with the Clarabelle. That's such a nice shift line. There's also Lady you can shift into, Rockstar Stitch. The Pegasus is really nice as well to give your whole board evasive. So a lot of cool options there. And then there's not much ways to interact with your opponent's board in this deck. So The Ursula, I think, is really important for that, to steal any song removal they might have in their hand. And that did come up pretty nicely for me. And also against Sapphire decks that are hoping to ramp with like how far I'll go or things like that. There was one copy of Yzma to help you cycle your hand and put key cards into the discard, which is nice. And then I really think the Rapunzel is always something to watch out for in Amber, so she's in there as well. Really liked Lady again from the draft. I enjoyed that, and I thought here as well you can get your Ursula back, or maybe you've lost a couple daisies early and you want to, close the game out and get a couple of 2-questers back as well. Lilo is really nice. You can put her in the discard intentionally through various means with this deck, and then just play her out later. And the Rockstar Stitch with all these 1 and 2 drops could draw you a lot of cards. And I think the new Tramp card that is Amber and Emerald, you can, cost 1 less to play based on how many other characters you have in play. So you can often get that down very early for much cheaper than 7. And then that allows you to, let's say you had 4 other characters in play, you'll only pay 3 to play it. And then you get to draw 4 cards and then discard 4. So you could easily, dump a lot of characters to the discard, which can set up a really cheap Chernobog to play, which is great. And yeah, so there's just a lot of cool synergies. 0 to hero as well to provide for some explosive openings. Because even if you just have like the 1-drop Clarabelle in play and then 2-drop Ursula, then on turn 3 you can ink to 3 and sing 0 to hero with Ursula and shift down your Clarabelle already. And 5/6 on turn 3 is really big, so that's cool. And then in other cases, I guess you could bounce the Tramp back. Like maybe you only have to pay 3 or 4 to play the Tramp, but because his printed cost is 7, then you're able to sing, let's say, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo with a 3-cost character, bounce the Tramp back, and then maybe drop in the big Clarabelle because it costs the same amount, or maybe a Surfer Stitch, which could draw you a couple of cards and stick a 4/8 down. So a lot of cool combos with that. I'd say the 2 most interesting interactions I had playing this deck, in one of the rounds my opponent had the new Floodborn Hero Hamada, which has a Evasive and Warden quest for 3, and I mean, like I said, this deck really doesn't have a way to interact with that, but I was able to draw 4 and discard 4 off the Tramp, which found me the Pegasus, and because I had the little Pegasus down, I got to shift that up, and since I had the big Clarabelle in play, and the hero already had 1 damage on it, then my Clarabelle was able to take him out, which really cut a lot of the opponent's pressure, and I had been worried about that hero until I could remove it, and that kind of sealed that game for me, so that was a really cool interaction. And then the other one I would say was the Under the Sea. There's only 1 copy in there, so I didn't know how reliable that would be, but my opponent had a 2-strength thing and then a 4-strength character as well. Or actually, maybe a shifted Clarabelle, I think. So 5 strength. But the Dale card was really cool because when you play Dale, you get to discard 3 off the top of your own deck, which puts more characters into your discard and makes your Chernobogs cheaper. But also, you get to give a character -3 strength for the turn. So I was able to -3 strength on the Clarabelle and then sing Under the Sea to put their entire board under the sea. And that really helped me close that one out too. So overall, it was just a ton of fun. I think there's a lot of interesting lines that you can take. And yeah, my first round was against a Sapphire Emerald deck, and it was very close, but I was able to squeak it out there in the end with both games. I think when they find their Muse bounces and Under the Seas as well, like my Daisy actually burned an Under the Sea off the top, or I would have, of their deck, or I would have probably lost that first game. So yeah, that was close, but I was able to win that. And then the second round was also against Sapphire Emerald, so clearly it's popular and people are excited to try it out. And that went to game 3, and I was able to just kind of go really aggressive in the third game. And they kind of ran out of cards trying to ramp up and didn't find the answers to the characters. So it was close, both against great friends, and it was a lot of fun. And then, yes, I queued into my brother here, and we ended up, it was only 2 games, and he got me in both. Got kind of close, but then the moment those Maui Sharks came down, I just couldn't really turn my character sideways and had no way to remove it. And
I really thought you were going to have me because you were off to a pretty fast start, and Maui Shark, when you can't play any ramp, it seems slow to not be able to use him until turn 7.
Mm-hmm.
And the deck, the current iteration I was using, didn't have any Strength of a Raging Fire or anything like that. So
the Zeus is.
I knew the Zeus was like the only removal I was gonna have in the early game, and even that is like a turn 4 or turn 5, depending on if you're going to sing it or play it. So, and I guess you can shift your Robin Hood up on turn 3 and possibly sing it if you need to. But I felt like, you know, I would be on the back foot most of the game. And eventually, I think it came down to the Sharks. There was one game I had 2 of them out, and then you got a big Chernobog out, and I top decked One Last Hope, and I was able to give that to one of my Sharks, and then I was able to hardcast the Zeus, and then take out one of your smaller characters with my other Shark, and then sing.
Get the Zeus
take
back,
the Zeus back,
yeah.
and then sing it onto your Chernobog. So without that, I think it would have been
I was
possibly
hoping you
a
weren't
loss
going to
there.
have that card, but you know, it might have been your one last hope, and you got it, so that was good. But
yeah, it was a lot of
fun.
fun. I thought both decks seemed to play very well, and I think you were at like 16 or 17 in both games, and so always fun getting to compete against you, even though it's a little stressful for sure.
Yeah, and I'm excited now I've seen a few other versions of this color pairing as well, so I might test out another one soon, because I do think this is a really fun new archetype that's gotten better with this new lady card and the tramp card. And I think it's cool that they're all, you know, similar theme from the same franchise, and they just support each other well in this deck. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun to play a deck that makes your opponent sweat a bit, and you know, this is definitely very aggressive and has a surprising amount of interesting tools and things that you can do to kind of keep them off their guard on
But I
their
would
toes.
be curious to see too how it does into like Sapphire Steel and Amber Steel, and you know, some of those steel decks that might have more early game answers. But you know, against the later game control decks, doesn't hurt to be able to go pretty fast. So, well, then in between rounds I played one game for fun with this list. So won't get into it too much, but this was from the Forbidden Mountain, Sapphire Emerald, and like I'd said earlier in our last couple of videos, this is one of the color pairings I was like most excited to try out. I think once I saw the new hero card get revealed, the Floodborn one that quests for 3 and gets evasive and ward if it's shifted on top of a character, I thought it was something I really wanted to try. So I did try it once, like I said, in between rounds, and it was similar to a discard deck that had been, you know, popular toward the end of the set, but now including this hero package and some shift lines. And yeah, it was fun. I was against Ruby Amethyst, and we ran out of time because, it was going quite long, and it was getting toward the bottom of my deck, actually. I'd drawn a lot off of Clarabelle's and had basically removed their board and discarded their hand, but then they started to draw some of their hand back. And so, I don't know, it was pretty close, so not sure how it would have ended, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to try this a little more. And then I've also seen versions trying to play the new Ink Geyser, so I'm curious to give that a try as well, because that's a little bit different, and I think that list was maybe more on the aggressive side of things, and maybe leaning even heavier into some of the Floodborn synergies, and like the new Baymax Floodborn as well could be in there. But this, I think, has a lot of nice tools to shut down aggressive decks, and then
especially like the Muses combo with the Sapphire Coil.
Oh yeah,
and
I think
all the
that's very
songs.
important. And then I had a crazy amount of ink. I think that new All Is Found card is really, really good for ramping, which, I mean, if you can get to a quick bend to my will before the opponent set much up, you know, that can be very beneficial. And then just one of my favorite characters has always been Peter Pan, and so I thought it's, you know, really cool card to get to include in here, a couple copies of Peter Pan, who, you know, blocks all, like, lore gain from your opponents until they've challenged a character, you know, on their turn. So that can shut off locations and things like, you know, goat triggers. So really cool card there. And overall, yeah, I think it's a great deck. Curious to see how it kind of evolves, because I know the Forbidden Mountain said this is, you know, an earlier version of it for this set, but I'm sure that people will be tweaking things, and I'm excited to see, you know, if it has any good tournament results out there as the metagame unfolds. So, but yeah, color combo I'm excited about, and the new hero is that set championship promo card coming up whenever those events roll around. So it'd be cool to try to earn some of those too.
Then we did our weekly multiplayer on a different night last week, and so for the first week I decided to bring something that I thought would be pretty aggressive. I guess my strategy here was just to play a bunch of cheap characters that either quest for 2 or have some interesting ability on them that might be beneficial. So, Fred, if he's challenged, you get 3 lore. The Cursed Merfolk is nice to get 2 lore. I know a lot of people like to play items in multiplayer, so the 1-cost Clarabelle is effective for that later on in the game, and then also you can shift your big Clarabelle on that. So if any opponent is like drawing a bunch of cards and I've kind of spent out my hand, that's a good way to not get punished for it. I can refill my hand with the big Clarabelle there. Pegasus, just nice if no one's playing invasive, so you can kind of keep questing until they find an answer. Mulan, I thought would be nice for cycling because I was playing 4 dogs, so if I ever had multiple, I thought she could be a nice way to kind of smooth that out and get rid of one. Flynn's, sometimes people don't want to attack into that and lose a card. So I think he's pretty decent on 2. The Gazelle is nice to play to give you a Merfolk evasive. Go-Go's, eventually what this deck wanted to do is get the Bagheera out on turn 5 and then just keep questing him or just put him right in bodyguard mode until, eventually an opponent might need to remove that. And then if everybody takes damage on the board, then the pack tactics that I was playing 4 copies of and the 4 copies of Go-Go Tamago would have a lot more targets to either get me a lot of lore, threaten to finish the game, and after I'd hopefully done a lot of questing early on. And then in case I didn't find certain card draw pieces, I also put in a couple of the Captain Hook, who lets you draw a card whenever he is challenged, and then also the Clarabelle, the 3-cost, because I usually had less cards than at least one opponent, so that would help me draw. And then Prince Philip I liked in there as well. Just if I'm close to the win, I could drop him in and threaten to win the game since he has that ward. And I tried 1 copy of the Gantu because I only opened 1 so far. But I thought he might be a nice thing on turn 4 to set up after you maybe play that Captain Hook or something, so that maybe people aren't going to be able to pay 5 for an action that might normally cost 3, like a Brawl, to remove him. So people might actually have to challenge into him and let you draw some cards, or just ignore him and then I can keep questing. So I liked the overall what this was trying to do. I got to 19 lore, and unfortunately I never saw any Go-Go's or pack tactics in the game.
Pack tactics can be crazy in multiplayer and with all the characters laying around.
I was gonna be the next person to take my turn, and I had the win on board, but my friend was able to go from 12 to 20 using, I think he had 7 lore on board, was able to quest to 19, and then he drew a fox to bounce his Cobra back, and then played that and discarded his last card to go to 21. So it was a very close game, pretty much all around the table, and really fun and back and forth and just explosive. So I thought this deck had a lot of potential, and I look forward to trying it some more in the future.
I tried a couple different decks. So this one was, in the Ruby Steel Challenger theme, so pretty similar to the list you saw earlier, but with some differences. Just for multiplayer, I wanted to get some lore gain that didn't rely on questing, so I threw in the 4 copies of Shere Khan. Didn't end up drawing any, so he was hiding in a jungle somewhere, and then some Super Goofy. I think that's really good in multiplayer. There's a lot of characters, like, I had 3 other people in the group, so there's a lot of questing happening, a lot of characters exposed for challenging. Prince Eric, who was pretty good because somebody had gotten a Chernabog into play. They were playing like a Lady and the Tramp Chernabog deck, and nobody really had big enough stats to deal with it, but he was able to just run into someone else's character and then banish the Chernabog, so that was interesting. And then Raya, I think you can pull off some cool combos with her, where maybe you run in with the Super Goofy and then you ink, so you get to ready him after he challenged, and then you can get 2 challenges and maybe gain 4 lore, or you can just ready someone to protect them. And Philoctetes just for a little extra lore gain. And it was interesting because I think I was at about 17 or 18 lore at the last turn, and if I got another turn, I had 3 heroes in hand to play, which would get 3 extra lore and close it out. So I do think he's pretty cool for that regard, like that every hero you play is kind of like a goat. He doesn't see much play though in Constructed, and I wonder if there'd be a way to make him have a spot. But cool character too. We love the Hercules franchise.
I do think the extra +1 challenger he gives to
That's
your heroes,
nice, yeah.
when challenging, is really effective.
There's a lot of heroes in the deck.
Calhoun can effectively clear a Daisy if you put Phil down.
Yep.
And like a Smee can take out a Daisy.
And it's kind of a surprise if the opponent thinks, I can quest my Daisy. All you have is Calhoun, but then you drop that in and all of a sudden she hits for 4. So it is cool like that. And then Mushu is the powerhouse of the deck. I would have had more than 2 in there, but I've only opened 2 so far. But yeah, whenever your characters banish a character, they get 2 at lore. So, I mean, if Calhoun banishes a character and he's in play, then that's getting you 4 lore right there. And also gives your characters resist when challenging. So that's really cool too. And just makes them a lot harder. And then your characters probably stick around. And then opponents need to challenge and remove them, or you can just do more challenging. And I like that Mushu himself also gets those benefits. So that's cool. And then Pyros has some unique effects where if he banishes, then you can ready any character, and they can quest again or do whatever. There's no restrictions there. So I just threw him in there because he kind of fits that challenge and banish theme. And then Robin Hood for the lore gain, Maui to be an evasive, and there's really hardly any actions in this deck. But I did want to include the Fan of Flames One Last Hope combo as well because it's so cool. I always love Pirate's Life as well for gaining lore, and in this case it subtracts 2 lore from every opponent. And Scar I thought would be cool if I had like a Shere Khan in play, if I could run in with Scar and challenge like 5 things in a row, depending on their strength, as long as he survived. That would be a lot of lore gain too, just out of the blue. And then I put in 1 Sisu just to shift on top of the 3-drop because I like the stats of the 3-drop Sisu just to be able to quest, or everyone has a pretty big hand, or even if everyone has a small hand, I mean, she's probably almost 10 strength in multiplayer, so
Yep.
Really cool. I enjoyed the deck. And then the other one I made that was a bit different, I'd always wanted to try brooms out, and in multiplayer you can really try some fun, unique things that maybe don't see as much competitive play, but so I kind of did 2 different themes with this one. It was a lot of the broom package, and then a lot of the new illusions too. And then I tried with the Mickey Mouse that returns brooms to your hand when they're banished, and then the Jafar that returns your illusions to hand if they're banished. And none of those effects ever went off, but it was cool to get to try some of the new cards. And then I put the Sorcerer's Tower in there just as a way to, let's say you have a wide enough board and you just drop it in and then slide some characters over, some brooms, and they all quest for 1 extra. It's like some surprise lore gain. And then the goats and white roses, of course, and the giant cobra was very good for gaining lore. And yeah, there's just a lot of heavy questers in here, and I thought Yensid would be cool. If you had a broom in play, you can draw a card on play and you quest for 3 if you've got 2 brooms. And I didn't get either of those to line up, but I still liked having them in there. And yeah, I actually got to 23 lore, but I didn't win, and that's because somebody had the new legendary Donald Duck in play, and that requires opponents to have 25 lore to win. So I thought that was cool. Like I really liked the look of that card on reveal, and just to see it actually make an impact on the game and prevent me from winning, and they were ultimately able to win because of it. I thought that was cool.
And I think that's a strong card in multiplayer too, because that was protecting other people from losing. So the other opponents don't want to remove that Donald because it would mean that you would win.
And so, somebody had to be prepared in hand, but they couldn't play it, or it would remove Donald, and then I would win instantly. So it just created some interesting strategies. And yeah, it was super close because then another opponent had a Lucky Diamond play, and they were at 19, but with a Tamatoa in play that was gonna be worth like 9 lore. So if it got back around to them, they would have won too. So it was really close. I threw 2 copies of the Queen in there just for more lore gain, and I did open an Enchanted Jafar as
which
well.
I imagine was some of your motivation for putting this together.
That did, yeah. That was actually on the night we played the single player or 1v1s. And so that was really exciting.
Yeah,
to
I think
open
it was back-to-back nights for you. First it was Aurora, and then the next night it was Jafar. And when we opened, we each got a case, of Lorcana boxes for this set, and that's what we tend to do every set usually. And you also got a Radigan Enchanted.
I did. So
in your case,
it was a pretty lucky opening overall, except for the legendaries. I only opened 1 Tamatoa and 1 Scrooge, and I know those are quite expensive right now, but I was very happy with the Enchanteds. Aurora being one of my favorites, Jafar being definitely probably my top 3 at least. Really cool art on that. So yeah, I mean, I think it was was excellent. I was very happy with that.
And I also pulled one Enchanted, and it was the Radigan. So
we were twinning out with our Radigans.
We kind of did. So I think my set is maybe number 8 or 9 here, and maybe I'll hold out for that Enchanted Pocahontas that I hope is coming somewhere down the line. But yeah, that's kind of the week of what we played.
It was busy. We did a lot of days of play. But yeah, I'm excited to now dive into the set further now that we've got some of the cards and put together more decks to play against each other and other people. Just test out and find what we really like. I know we watched like some footage from 3 different tournaments over the past weekend.
Looks like Sapphire's been doing very well, especially the new Tamatoa package and Belle as well.
And it was a really fun looking deck with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and the Lucky Dime and just, the new Tamatoas and Scrooge and Belle and Popsicle. And I think, it seems like that's making waves in the community and driving the prices up. But I know some people might not enjoy playing against it, but it looked really fun to me and definitely one I want to try at some point.
And it'll be interesting to see what decks might be created to try to combat, the Sapphire Steel strategies. And also Ruby Sapphire is still very popular too. So yeah, we'll just have to see how the meta develops in the weeks ahead.
Yep, but it was a very fun release week and a great start to Archazia's Island, and we are excited to see, all the decks that continue to develop over the format. And I know this one seems like it's a shorter period until the release of the next set this time. But I want to really enjoy this one while we have it, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's off to a good start.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us, and we hope you continue to enjoy Archazia's Island.
Yep, until next time, happy questing.